Joining us this evening is Alison Burrison, a well-known personal injury lawyer from McLeish, Orlando. Welcome back to What She Said.
Thank you. Good evening.
So now that, given it's wintertime, we're going to focus on travel and accident insurance, something many of us buy. But gosh, we hear a lot of stories about, insurance companies that just don't pay out.
Yes, that's correct. Just in terms of that, just to differentiate accident insurance, and we were talking about this previously, that's something that you may already have through, if you have children, you have it through your schools. If you're working, it's probably part of your extended health benefit package. So it's really like a lump sum of money. If there is a tragic accident that in which one of your children or you perhaps lose your vision, hearing in an accident, or perhaps you lose the use of your arms or your legs. Travel insurance is a little bit different in the sense that as you're traveling outside of Canada, you have to look at where am I traveling to, and if I get into an accident, whether or not it is as tragic as the descriptions I had earlier about the injuries, what am I going to have in terms of insurance to make sure I get the best medical care while I'm there and be able to get back to Canada, where obviously it's OHIP funded?
Well, let's explain to people a little bit about that. This was the mother of a 12-year-old girl who suffered a traumatic eye injury playing soccer. Her insurance company only wanted to pay $8 for the mileage to hospital instead of $50,000 for the actual eye injury.
And that is just so common, and that's one of the reasons that I really wanted to talk about accident insurance as well as travel insurance. In that particular case, this little girl was injured in Canada, in Vancouver. Her mother was an ER nurse, and so she had seen so many instances of children coming in and seeing the devastation to families financially. It is a whole family that is injured as a result of a tragic accident financially, because you need to care for that child. You need to take time off. You need to make sure they get the best medical care. So this ER nurse for 12 years had been paying for accident insurance over and above what her employer paid for her child. And ultimately, when her child was injured and she thought it met the definition of what the injury was, the insurance company denied payment.
So basically, are you saying that before we buy accident or travel insurance, we almost need a lawyer to look over the policy? Because that's what it sounds like, because they don't seem to be wanting to pay out, and we hear this a lot.
I know. I don't want to say to people, you have to go and hire a lawyer. What I actually do is I'm able to look the policies myself, because what do I do? But I also go to either someone independent, like a broker, or like a financial advisor who deals with insurance. They're not related to the insurance company in any way, to look at the policies that I have and say, what is my travel policy here with my employer? What is the one I've bought privately? Where are some terms here that are very harmful to me if I'm in this situation? Or do I have too much insurance? Is one going to pay and then the other never really pays and I'm paying these monthly premiums? So I do that on a regular basis, and that really helps me streamline what I need, what is a good policy, and maybe instead of putting money into more of an accident insurance policy or another travel insurance policy, I'll just put that into, a low interest savings account or something else that they'll help to build as a safety net should something happen.
Do you think insurance policies deliberately put in so much fine print that people don't understand? Because really, ultimately, what you're saying is you need to check what you have and fill the gaps.
Yeah, and this is a conversation that some people have a difficult time understanding. Insurance companies are businesses, and so they have to make sure the premiums that come in still exceed the claims they pay out. So they have very educated people that sit in the backgrounds. They look every year, what are we paying out on? What type of accidents? What are the terms there? And in order for us to maybe increase our profits, let's put in more restrictive terms so those type of claims go down. So yes, as compared to the layperson, their terms are very, very well developed to make sure that at the end of the day, there's still a profit there for them. So you need to make sure you protect yourself by saying, before I just sign on this line, because I don't understand what all this means, I don't work in this industry, I'm going to have someone independent like a broker or like a financial advisor look at this to see if I really need it and see if it'll benefit me.
Now, in terms of travel insurance, do you recommend people buy it?
That's a different kind of type of insurance. What I'm seeing the most with travel insurance is, yes, it's important, but you might already have it. And what travel insurers are doing more and more is they're putting not exclusions. They're saying we are not going to be the first payor. So if you're traveling down to Florida in your car, your auto insurer is going to be your first payor. Your second insurer is going to be your employer benefit package that might pay for medical insurance for you to be flown back. So we are the last payor. So what I'm finding is, yes, they're agreeing to pay for medical benefits, but the first thing they say is these three pay first. So by the time I get to that fourth travel insurance policy that you've paid net dollars out of pocket for to make sure you're protected, you're not collecting on it. So make sure you don't have too much travel insurance, or maybe you can buy it through the credit card that you purchased the flight on.
Because
Exactly,
that's
yeah.
what I thought. That I've looked at my American Express and my Visa and compared what they cover as well, and thought, well, they're going to get me back to Canada if I'm just going to the States. So what else do I need?
Exactly. So if you've gone and you've called your credit card company and said, can you explain to me the travel insurance? What are they? Please email it to me. And then ultimately you say that covers me enough for an extra $50 and I put my trip on my Visa. I don't have to pay for anything more. Then at the end of every web, when you go and book something and they say, make sure you've got travel insurance, you don't need it. You've already covered yourself off that way, and then you save that money for yourself that you're never going to use that insurance policy.
Now, do you see situations where the various parties argue over who covers? Let's say a woman who goes into labor early. Mm-hmm. I mean, car insurance is going to pay for that.
Right. Yeah, I have seen that. So what's really good about insurance is as soon as you make the first claim, they'll say, what are the other insurance policies you potentially have? Mm-hmm. And you would put your credit card, maybe your employer extended benefit plan. And then between themselves, they'll find out what the priority is and they'll figure out who needs to pay first. And sometimes there is a dispute. And so we're retained to say, someone has to pay here. And as between the two of you, it doesn't matter. They're both valid policies and they both met the terms of the policy. But for you as a consumer, don't overinsure yourself.
It's hard to know, though, when you're overinsuring yourself, right?
It is, but I think travel, it's a good point where you say, I know I've got some travel on my Visa or American Express. I'm going to call them if I think that's the best travel. That's where I'm booking through. I know I can decline every time that I rent a car or when I'm away or I book that flight because I know my credit card company has covered me. And I've even done it at the rental car company where I say, wait a minute, I know I'm covered and they're pressuring me to buy this insurance. And I got on the phone with, I think it was American Express and said, am I covered under this? And they said, yes, decline the insurance.
So how willing are they to pay out claims, the credit card companies themselves?
I find that they actually are quite willing to pay out the claims. You just have to make sure you understand what they're covering you for. Mm-hmm. So under the auto insurance, when I go down to the States, I want to make sure they're just covering me. They're not just covering me for injury. I want to make sure they're covering me for collision. I want to make sure they're covering me for deductible. Those are the types of terms you want to look at. $1,000 US for a deductible. Wait a minute. I might want to get some insurance on that so I'm not on the hook for that.
And in terms of accident insurance, we're flipping around here. I'm thinking of all the people who have children or grandchildren. And I remember when my kids were in school, we bought insurance at the beginning of the year. It wasn't very much. Mm-hmm. And it was supposed to cover them, I think, for stuff that happened at school. Yeah. Is that enough?
It depends on how much the coverage is. Usually the insurance through schools is not very much. And then it depends really on the term. So if we circle back to that accident of that young girl in Vancouver, mm-hmm. Her mother, $50,000 for loss of vision might be enough just in the initial stages where her mother might have to stay home for her. She might need treatment. She underwent surgery mm-hmm. to try and reattach her retina. But the terms were so vague about, whether or not she got more than 2,200 vision back after her surgical operation and what mm-hmm. corrective lenses, included in that definition. I think that's where you have to really look at the terms and say, I'm willing to invest in this, but what am I paying for each month? And is it really going to cover me for that injury? So, it's a nice option to have. I would just say before you pay, take a better look at the terms.
I guess it also depends on the lifestyle of your child. If you've got a downhill racer, you might want to grab some.
Yes, and that's actually a good point of accident insurance is read the exclusions. So they will want you to disclose all type of activities that you or your child does. And a lot of times they'll write in the policy without people reading it, we exclude injuries that you suffer from accidents like skydiving or like whitewater rafting. And so if you've disclosed my daughter is a downhill racer, they may put that in the exclusion policy. So make sure you're reading that before you sign.
Well, thank you so much, Alison Burrison, for joining us. Now, anyone looking for some legal advice or to hire a personal injury lawyer can contact McLeish Orlando how?
You can contact us through the web. We service all across Ontario, so not just in Toronto where our office is based, and also by email or phone.
Thank you. This is What She Said on the Jewel. Stay with us.